One of the most important lessons you will ever learn in life is that you should never apologize for having boundaries. Boundaries are not signs of pride, selfishness, or rebellion. Boundaries are evidence that you understand your value. They are the invisible lines that protect your peace, your purpose, your time, and your emotional well-being. Many people have been taught that being a good person means always being available, always agreeing, always sacrificing, and always saying yes. But that is not wisdom. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can be loving and still have limits. You can be compassionate and still refuse to tolerate behavior that destroys your peace. A house without walls cannot provide shelter. A nation without borders cannot protect its citizens. A bank without security cannot protect its assets. In the same way, a person without boundaries cannot protect their emotional, mental, and spiritual health. Boundaries exist because valuable things require protection. A narcissist often interprets boundaries as rejection because boundaries reduce their ability to control you. They become uncomfortable when they discover that they no longer have unlimited access to your time, your attention, your emotions, or your decisions. The very things that keep you healthy are often the things they perceive as threats. When you begin to establish boundaries, you may hear statements designed to make you feel guilty. You may be told that you have changed. You may be accused of becoming selfish, cold, difficult, or uncaring. Why? Because people who benefited from your lack of boundaries often struggle to adjust when you finally decide to protect yourself. You must understand this principle. Not everyone misses you when you change. Some people miss the access they once had to your energy. They miss the version of you that never said no. They miss the person who accepted disrespect, tolerated manipulation, and neglected personal needs to keep everyone else comfortable. The problem with living without boundaries is that eventually you lose yourself. You become so focused on managing other people's expectations that you forget your own identity. You become exhausted because you are carrying responsibilities that were never yours to carry. You become frustrated because you are trying to please people whose demands have no limits. The truth is that people who have no boundaries often end up living according to other people's priorities rather than their own purpose. Every moment of your life is an investment. Every hour you spend is something you can never recover. If you do not determine how your energy will be used, someone else will decide for you. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. They communicate what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. They say, I will treat you with respect and I expect respect in return. They say, I am willing to help, but I will not allow myself to be exploited. They say, I care about this relationship, but I will not sacrifice my dignity to maintain it. Many people confuse boundaries with punishment. They think boundaries are walls built to keep people out. In reality, healthy boundaries are gates. They allow healthy relationships to grow while preventing destructive patterns from taking control of your life. Boundaries do not destroy relationships. They reveal their quality. A healthy person may not always like your boundaries, but they will eventually respect them. A controlling person often becomes angry because your boundaries interfere with their ability to manipulate you. Their reaction tells you something important. It reveals whether they value you as a person or merely value the benefits they receive from having unrestricted access to you. Never feel guilty for needing rest. Never apologize for requiring respect. Never feel ashamed because you need time alone to recover your strength. Never apologize for protecting your emotional health. You are not designed to carry every burden, solve every problem, or satisfy every demand placed upon you. Even nature teaches us the necessity of limits. Day has boundaries and night has boundaries. The oceans have shores. The seasons have beginnings and endings. Creation itself operates within order and limits. Boundaries are not evidence of weakness. They are evidence of wisdom. You cannot fulfill your purpose while constantly living under pressure to meet everyone's expectations. You cannot become who you were created to be if your identity is controlled by guilt and fear. Sometimes the most powerful word you can say is no. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back. Sometimes the healthiest decision you can make is to refuse access to behavior that continually harms your peace. The moment you understand your value, boundaries stop feeling like acts of selfishness and start feeling like acts of stewardship. You realize that your mind, your time, your peace, and your purpose are precious resources entrusted to you. Protecting them is not pride, it is responsibility. And you should never apologize for responsibly guarding what has been placed in your care. One of the most powerful words in the human language is the word no. It is a small word, but it carries enormous authority because it establishes ownership. The ability to say no is evidence that you understand that your life belongs to you and that your time, energy, emotions, and decisions are valuable resources that must be managed wisely. Many people have been conditioned to believe that saying no is rude, selfish, or unkind. They feel guilty whenever they refuse a request, decline an invitation, or disagree with someone's expectations. Because of this guilt, they develop a habit of saying yes to things they do not want, accepting responsibilities they cannot handle, and tolerating behaviors that violate their peace. Eventually, they become exhausted, frustrated, and disconnected from themselves. A narcissist often depends upon this weakness. People who struggle to say no become easy targets for manipulation because they are constantly trying to earn approval and avoid conflict. The narcissist learns that guilt can be used as a weapon. They know that if they accuse you of being selfish, uncaring, or ungrateful, you may surrender your boundaries in order to restore peace. But peace that is purchased through self-betrayal is not peace at all. It is simply another form of bondage. You must understand that every time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. Time is limited. Energy is limited. Attention is limited. You cannot give your resources endlessly without consequences. Every unnecessary yes steals something from your purpose. It steals time that could have been invested in your family, your health, your dreams, your rest, or your personal growth. A person who cannot say no eventually becomes controlled by the expectations of others. Their decisions are no longer guided by wisdom, but by fear. They fear disappointing people. They fear rejection. They fear criticism. They fear being misunderstood. As a result, they begin to live according to other people's demands rather than according to their own convictions. The problem with living this way is that it slowly destroys identity. Every time you ignore your own values to satisfy someone else's desires, you move further away from who you are meant to become. You begin to lose your voice. You begin to question your feelings. You begin to believe that your needs are less important than everyone else's. Eventually, you become so accustomed to pleasing others that you no longer recognize yourself. Saying no is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of maturity. Mature people understand that they cannot be everything to everyone. They recognize their limitations and respect them. They understand that wisdom is not merely knowing what to pursue. Wisdom is also knowing what to decline. Even nature operates through boundaries. Every river has banks. Every nation has borders. Every successful organization has policies. Boundaries create order, and the word no is one of the primary tools that establishes those boundaries. Without it, life becomes chaotic and directionless. A narcissist may become angry when you begin using this word because no interrupts control. It communicates that your decisions cannot be manipulated by guilt, intimidation, or emotional pressure. It declares that you have thoughts, preferences, and priorities that deserve respect. The narcissist may respond by criticizing you, withdrawing affection, creating drama, or portraying you as the problem. But another person's reaction does not determine whether your boundary is healthy. You must learn that disagreement is not disrespect. Refusing to participate in unhealthy behavior is not rebellion. Declining unreasonable demands is not selfishness. Protecting your energy is not a character flaw. There are times in life when saying no is actually the most loving thing you can do for yourself. It prevents resentment from growing in your heart. It protects your emotional health. It preserves your ability to fulfill your responsibilities with excellence. Most importantly, it teaches people how to treat you. People often say they want freedom, but freedom requires courage. The courage to say no is one of the highest forms of self-respect because it demonstrates that you understand your value. You recognize that your life has purpose and that your resources must be invested wisely. Do not apologize for saying no to manipulation. Do not apologize for refusing disrespect. Do not apologize for declining demands that violate your peace or distract you from your purpose. Your no is not a sign that you are becoming difficult. It is evidence that you are becoming responsible for your own life. The day you become comfortable saying no is the day you stop handing the keys of your life to other people. You begin making decisions based on wisdom rather than guilt, purpose rather than pressure, and conviction rather than fear. And when you learn this principle, you discover that every meaningful and purposeful life is protected by the courageous ability to say one simple word, no. One of the most difficult things to do in any relationship is to speak the truth when the truth makes other people uncomfortable. Yet this is one thing you should never apologize for. You should never apologize for speaking honestly, for naming reality accurately, and for refusing to participate in deception. Truth is not cruelty. Truth is clarity. Truth is light. Truth is the foundation upon which healthy relationships, healthy decisions, and healthy identities are built. A narcissist often lives through carefully constructed perceptions. Image becomes more important than substance. Appearance becomes more important than authenticity. Control becomes more important than connection. In such an environment, truth is perceived as a threat because truth exposes what manipulation tries to hide. This is why many people who have dealt with narcissistic individuals eventually become afraid of speaking honestly. They have been trained to believe that expressing their thoughts will create conflict. They have learned that pointing out contradictions will lead to blame, criticism, or punishment. They begin editing themselves. They become silent about their feelings. They minimize their experiences. They start questioning their own reality. The danger of constantly suppressing the truth is that eventually you stop trusting yourself. When a person repeatedly ignores their own observations, denies their own emotions, and dismisses their own experiences, they become disconnected from their inner wisdom. The tragedy is not merely that someone else deceived them. The greater tragedy is that they begin deceiving themselves. Truth is one of humanity's greatest gifts because it provides direction. Imagine attempting to build a house on shifting sand. No matter how beautiful the structure appears, it remains unstable because its foundation is weak. In the same way, relationships that are built upon denial, manipulation, and dishonesty eventually collapse under the weight of reality. Truth may create temporary discomfort, but deception creates long-term destruction. There are people who will become angry simply because you describe what actually happened. They are not upset because you lied. They are upset because your honesty interrupts the story they want to maintain. They become uncomfortable because truth removes confusion. And confusion is often the environment in which manipulation flourishes. When you calmly say, "That hurt me," you are speaking truth. When you say, "I remember things differently," you are speaking truth. When you say, "This behavior is unacceptable to me," you are speaking truth. These statements are not attacks. They are expressions of reality. You should never apologize for expressing reality. Many people believe peace comes from avoiding difficult conversations, but genuine peace is not built upon avoidance. Genuine peace is built upon truth. Temporary silence may prevent conflict for a moment, but unresolved dishonesty slowly creates frustration, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. You cannot experience authentic peace while constantly pretending that everything is fine. Truth also protects your identity. Every time you speak honestly, you reinforce your ability to trust your own perceptions. You remind yourself that your experiences matter, your emotions are real, and your voice deserves to be heard. You stop abandoning yourself in order to make other people comfortable. One of the signs of maturity is developing the courage to say what is true with both conviction and wisdom. Truth does not require shouting. Truth does not require humiliation. Truth does not need aggression. Truth can be spoken with calmness, dignity, and respect. Strength is not demonstrated by becoming louder than everyone else. Strength is demonstrated by remaining committed to reality even when others attempt to pressure you into denying it. Remember that every significant change in human history began with someone having the courage to speak truth despite opposition. Progress occurs because someone decides that honesty is more important than approval. Growth happens because someone refuses to continue pretending. You cannot heal from what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot solve problems you refuse to identify. You cannot become your authentic self while continuously hiding behind silence. The purpose of truth is not to destroy people, it is to illuminate reality. Light does not create the mess in a room. Light simply reveals what was already there. In the same way, speaking honestly does not create dysfunction. It merely exposes what already exists. Therefore, never apologize for speaking the truth. Never apologize for accurately describing your experiences. Never apologize for expressing your feelings honestly and respectfully. Never apologize for refusing to participate in confusion. Your voice was not given to you merely to repeat what other people want to hear. It was given to you so that you could communicate reality, preserve your integrity, and live authentically. The moment you stop apologizing for telling the truth is the moment you begin reclaiming your confidence, because truth and freedom are inseparable. A person who can speak honestly without surrendering to fear has already taken the first step toward emotional freedom. One of the greatest responsibilities you have in life is protecting your peace. Peace is not a luxury reserved for a few fortunate people. It is a necessity for every person who desires to live with purpose, clarity, and emotional health. Yet many people surrender their peace because they feel guilty for defending it. They apologize for taking space, for limiting access to their lives, or for walking away from constant drama. You should never apologize for protecting your peace. Peace is more than silence. You can sit in a quiet room and still have a troubled mind. True peace is internal order. It is the ability to think clearly, to make wise decisions, and to maintain emotional stability regardless of external circumstances. Peace gives you the ability to focus on what matters instead of constantly reacting to chaos. A narcissist often interprets your peace as a threat because peace creates independence. When your emotions are calm and your thinking is clear, you become difficult to manipulate. You are less likely to react impulsively, less likely to seek approval, and less likely to tolerate disrespect. A peaceful mind asks important questions. It examines behavior instead of excusing it. It notices patterns instead of ignoring them. Peace gives you perspective, and perspective weakens manipulation. This is why some people continually create confusion and conflict. They understand that exhausted people are easier to influence. A person who is emotionally drained often makes decisions based on fear, guilt, or pressure rather than wisdom. Constant arguments, criticism, and emotional instability slowly wear down your ability to think clearly. Eventually, you begin doubting yourself. You question your perceptions and even apologize for having normal emotional needs. You must understand that your mind is like a garden. Whatever you continually allow into it will eventually grow. If your environment is filled with chaos, criticism, and unnecessary conflict, those things begin to affect your thoughts and emotions. Anxiety increases, confidence decreases, joy becomes difficult to maintain. The quality of your inner life is greatly influenced by what you permit to occupy your attention. Protecting your peace means becoming intentional about your environment. It means recognizing that not every conversation deserves your participation, and not every battle deserves your energy. Wisdom is not found in winning every argument. Wisdom is often found in knowing which arguments are not worth having. Many people believe that maintaining peace means avoiding difficult decisions. In reality, peace often requires courage. Sometimes protecting your peace means saying no when others expect unlimited access to your time and emotions. Sometimes it means establishing boundaries that disappoint people. Sometimes it means creating distance from relationships that repeatedly produce confusion and pain. You may feel guilty for doing these things because you have been conditioned to believe that preserving yourself is selfish. But there is a difference between selfishness and stewardship. Selfishness ignores the needs of others entirely. Stewardship recognizes that your emotional, mental, and spiritual resources are valuable and should not be carelessly depleted. Imagine trying to pour water into someone else's cup while your own cup is empty. Eventually, you have nothing left to give. The same principle applies to emotional health. If you continually sacrifice your peace to satisfy unreasonable expectations, you will become exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from your purpose. You cannot effectively serve others while constantly neglecting yourself. Peace is essential because purpose requires concentration. Every significant achievement in life demands focused thought and sustained effort. Chaos disrupts focus. Emotional turmoil consumes attention that could be directed toward meaningful goals. Many dreams remain unrealized because people spend years managing unnecessary drama instead of pursuing their purpose. Protecting your peace also teaches others how to treat you. Every boundary communicates value. When you continually tolerate disrespect, you unintentionally send the message that your well-being is negotiable. When you calmly enforce healthy boundaries, you communicate that your emotional health matters. Some people will not appreciate these boundaries. They may accuse you of changing. They may call you distant, selfish, or difficult. But growth often requires disappointing people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Not everyone will celebrate your commitment to peace because your peace may expose their dependence on chaos. You are not responsible for carrying burdens that do not belong to you. You are not obligated to participate in every conflict. You do not have to explain every decision that protects your emotional well-being. You are permitted to rest. You are permitted to disconnect from unnecessary drama. You are permitted to create an environment where your mind can recover and your purpose can flourish. Peace is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is the disciplined decision to preserve your energy for what truly matters. It is the wisdom to recognize that your mind, your emotions, and your attention are among your most valuable resources. Never apologize for protecting your peace. Your peace allows you to think clearly, love wisely, make sound decisions, and pursue your purpose with focus and strength. Peace is not something to feel guilty about preserving. It is something to guard with great intention because a peaceful mind is one of the greatest foundations for a meaningful and purposeful life. One of the most revealing moments in any relationship occurs when you begin to grow. Growth changes your thinking, your priorities, your standards, and even your expectations of how you should be treated. The person who once tolerated disrespect starts demanding respect. The person who constantly sought approval begins trusting their own judgment. The individual who once feared being alone discovers inner strength and no longer accepts unhealthy behavior simply to keep peace. Growth transforms everything. This transformation is often difficult for a narcissist to accept because control depends on predictability. As long as you remain dependent, insecure, and uncertain about yourself, you are easier to influence. But growth changes the entire equation. The stronger you become, the less you need constant validation. The wiser you become, the more clearly you recognize manipulation. The healthier your self-esteem becomes, the less willing you are to sacrifice your peace for someone else's comfort. A narcissist may interpret your growth as rebellion, but it is not rebellion. It is development. It is the natural process of becoming more emotionally mature and more aware of your own value. Every healthy person is supposed to grow. Every tree is supposed to increase in size. Every seed is supposed to become more than it was in the beginning. Imagine planting a seed and becoming angry because it became a tree. That would be unreasonable. In the same way, it is unreasonable for someone to become upset because you have become wiser, stronger, and more independent. Growth often changes your boundaries. You begin to realize that not every battle deserves your energy. You no longer explain yourself endlessly to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop chasing acceptance from individuals who continually move the standard just out of reach. You become selective about where you invest your time, emotions, and attention. This is not arrogance. This is maturity. As you grow, you may also discover that some relationships were built more on your weakness than your strength. Some people enjoyed having access to you because you constantly gave without limits. They appreciated your willingness to overextend yourself, to neglect your own needs, and to prioritize their desires above your own well-being. They were comfortable with the version of you that did not know its worth. But when growth begins, everything changes. You start asking questions, you start evaluating patterns, you begin noticing that certain interactions leave you emotionally exhausted rather than encouraged. You realize that some relationships require you to become smaller in order for someone else to feel bigger. You recognize that peace should not require abandoning your identity. The uncomfortable truth is that not everyone benefits from your growth. Some people were attached to your limitations. They were comfortable with your insecurity because it made them feel important. They were comfortable with your confusion because it allowed them to define reality for you. They were comfortable with your dependence because it guaranteed their influence. This is why your personal growth may provoke resistance. A narcissist may accuse you of changing. They may say you are no longer the person you used to be. In one sense, they are absolutely correct. You are not the same person anymore. You are becoming healthier. You are becoming more self-aware. You are becoming emotionally stronger. You are developing the courage to honor your own needs and values. There is nothing to apologize for in that process. Growth is one of life's greatest responsibilities. You were never meant to remain exactly as you were 10 years ago. Human beings were created with the capacity to learn, adapt, and mature. Every experience carries lessons. Every challenge presents opportunities for development. Every disappointment has the potential to increase wisdom. The purpose of life is not merely to exist, but to continually become. Do not feel guilty because your standards have increased. Do not apologize because you no longer tolerate behaviors that once seemed normal. Do not shrink yourself to accommodate someone's desire for control. Growth is evidence that you are taking responsibility for your life. A person who truly cares about you may need time to adjust to your changes, but they will ultimately celebrate your development. They will encourage your healing, support your boundaries, and respect your individuality. Healthy relationships create space for both people to evolve. Never allow someone else's discomfort to become a prison for your potential. You do not dishonor others by becoming stronger. You do not betray people by becoming wiser. You do not commit an offense by discovering your worth. Your growth is not an act of rejection toward anyone. It is an act of stewardship toward yourself. It is the decision to become everything you are capable of becoming. And whenever your growth threatens someone's ability to control you, remember this. You are not responsible for apologizing because you became healthier. You are responsible for continuing to grow, continuing to learn, and continuing to become the person you were designed to be. One of the greatest mistakes a person can make is apologizing for being who they were created to be. Think about this carefully. A tree never apologizes for bearing fruit. The sun never apologizes for giving light. An eagle never apologizes because it flies higher than other birds. Everything in creation functions according to its design. The only creature that spends years apologizing for its identity is the human being. Many people have been conditioned to believe that acceptance must be earned by abandoning themselves. They learn to become whatever keeps other people comfortable. They become smaller to fit into someone's expectations. They become quieter so they do not intimidate others. They hide their intelligence, suppress their dreams, and ignore their convictions because they are afraid of rejection. Eventually, they become strangers to themselves. A narcissist often benefits from this confusion. Control becomes easier when a person no longer knows who they are. If you constantly question your worth, you become dependent upon someone else to define it for you. If you constantly seek approval, you become vulnerable to manipulation. The more disconnected you are from your authentic identity, the more power controlling people gain over your decisions. This is why becoming yourself is such a powerful act. It changes the entire relationship you have with the world. When you know who you are, you no longer need endless validation. When you know your value, you are not easily intimidated by criticism. When you understand your purpose, you stop allowing temporary opinions to determine your direction. Being yourself is not arrogance. It is alignment. It means your thoughts, your words, your values, and your actions begin working together instead of fighting against one another. Many people are exhausted, not because life is difficult, but because they are constantly pretending. Pretending requires tremendous energy. You have to remember what mask you wore with one person and what version of yourself you presented to another. Living this way creates emotional fatigue because you were never designed to carry so many false identities. Authenticity brings peace because it removes the burden of performance. You no longer wake up wondering how to impress people. You no longer spend every moment trying to gain acceptance. You no longer shape your personality around the expectations of others. Instead, you become comfortable with who you are and committed to becoming the best version of yourself. This does not mean everyone will approve of you. In fact, one of the realities of life is that authenticity often makes some people uncomfortable. Your confidence reminds insecure people of the risks they never took. Your boundaries challenge people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Your independence threatens those who preferred your dependence. Your growth exposes people who only appreciated you when you were uncertain and easily controlled. You must understand this principle. Not everyone will celebrate your becoming. Some people only know how to relate to the version of you that lacked confidence. They were comfortable when you doubted yourself. They were comfortable when you tolerated disrespect. They were comfortable when you ignored your own needs. But the moment you begin to embrace your identity, they may accuse you of changing. The truth is that growth always involves change. You are supposed to evolve. You are supposed to become wiser. You are supposed to discover your gifts, strengthen your character, and walk confidently in your purpose. Life is a journey of becoming. Therefore, never feel guilty because you are no longer the person you used to be. The tragedy of life is not that people reject you. The real tragedy is rejecting yourself in order to avoid rejection from others. Imagine reaching the end of your life and realizing you spent decades performing for people who could never truly appreciate you because they never met the real you. They only knew the character you created to gain their approval. Your uniqueness is not an accident. Your voice matters. Your perspective matters. Your gifts matter. Your dreams matter. You were designed with qualities that no one else can duplicate exactly as you can. Therefore, you should never apologize for your identity, your growth, your values, your boundaries, or your purpose. Stand confidently in who you are becoming. Protect your authenticity. Refuse to shrink yourself so that others can feel comfortable. Refuse to betray your convictions to gain temporary acceptance. The world does not benefit when you hide your true self. The world benefits when you fully embrace the person you were created to be and have the courage to live as that person without apology.